Speaking of MAGA media, this is really interesting. Newsmax host Greta Van Susteren brought on Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders won over the heart and the mind of this Newsmax host. Newsmax is identified as more right-wing, more crazy MAGA than Fox News is. And Bernie was able to have a really thoughtful discussion and say, hey, even if you think I'm the epitome of communism or whatever, I'm trying to do, and Biden has tried to do, some things that lower prescription drug costs that maybe we can all agree on. This is super fascinating.
Dello Research, you have been fighting for fair drug prices since you were in Congress. 25 years ago, you introduced your first act, the Prescription Drug Fairness for Citizens Act, 1999. What is the problem that now the drug prices are still catastrophically high compared to other countries?
Absolutely. We are paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, as you may or may not know. If you've done some research, I've taken trips of Americans over the Canadian border, where in some cases we have bought the same exact product for 1/10 of the price in Canada compared to the United States. And in fact, prices around the world are even less expensive than in Canada. So we're getting ripped off, and our goal now is to take on the pharmaceutical industry and very simply tell them, hey, don't charge us prices in America that are higher than the people in other countries.
Well, you've been quite a warrior for the drug industry. I mean, that's no secret. You've introduced a number of acts on this, but you've got sort of an uphill battle. Last year, and according to my research, the big pharma spent $379 million on lobbying. So you've got sort of a heavy lift with some of your colleagues.
They are, next to Wall Street, the most powerful political force in the country. Believe it or not, and this is true, they have 1,800 well-paid lobbyists here in Washington to make sure the Democrats and Republicans do nothing to protect the American people. Now, the good news is we have made a little bit of progress, some progress in the last few years. If you are on insulin right now and you're a senior, you will not be paying more than $35 a month. We've worked hard on that issue. If you have asthma and you use an inhaler, we are moving now 2 out of the major 4 companies are not charging the hundreds of dollars they used to charge for the inhalers, but $35. The major one by the end of the year will also reduce their prices. If you are a senior, no matter how many ailments you have, and no matter how many prescription drugs you take, you will not be paying more than $2,000 out of pocket. So those are good steps forward. It ain't enough.
And I'll stop it there, but really interesting to see him going on such a right-wing outlet that perceives him to be the enemy and laying out some uncontroversial facts, or at least facts that should be in a rational political dialogue. So here from the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation, you have just bolstering what he said. In 2022, U.S. prices across all drugs, brands, and generics were nearly 2.78 times as high as prices in the comparison countries. U.S. prices for brand drugs were at least 3.22 times as high as prices in the comparison countries, even after adjustments for estimated U.S. rebates. So one of the things that is so irritating about dealing with the extreme MAGA Republican ideology that often doesn't even want to agree on funding the government, doesn't agree on if winners of elections should become the person who's in office, don't believe in some of the basic principles of our system, is that has to become our focus. It has to be our priority. And what that does is it pushes to the side other pressing issues, at least in our dialogues, even if some things are still getting done on them, and pushes those down the road as things that we'll be talking about and debating about and coming up with the best solutions on. Because when Marjorie Taylor Greene is out there screaming about how the election was stolen, we're not going to sit down with the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world and have thoughtful discussions about how we lower prescription drug costs. And so it distracts from even if we should be distracted by it because it's so pressing and it's so foundational, but it does pull us away from other issues that need to be solved. And that's the reason why Harris winning in November isn't just about us getting away from avoiding a complete Democratic crisis as we could see under Trump. That's number one priority, but also hopefully then seeing real achievements, many of which or achievements, we saw some of them, some pretty significant ones in the last few years. And Bernie mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act, seniors specifically being helped with their prescription drug costs, Medicare being able to negotiate drug prices. We've heard reporting on that starting with the 10 big drugs, capping the cost of insulin at $35 out of pocket per month. Then Bernie mentioned the $2,000 cap out of pocket per year for all prescription drugs for seniors. The only thing I take issue with in Bernie's appearance on Newsmax, unless I missed this, is, and he does this well, which is to present a friendly vibe. Right? Hey, and if you hear a hammering, there's hammering. I've mentioned to the viewers on my show, the construction's been going on in the building right over for so long. It's driving me crazy, but we charge forward. I wish that Bernie, even though being friendly and not attacking the host, not attacking Republicans, maybe wins over more of the Newsmax viewers, or at least brings this issue to their mind. But I wish he had said, hey, there's a problem in my party too, but your party has the worst problem with blocking progress on this issue. An example is I just told you about the Inflation Reduction Act. Greta. We could have seen many of those things, like the cap on insulin, applied to all Americans if it weren't for Republicans and some conservative Democrats blocking that from being expanded. We could see some of the things that seniors are going to be benefiting from for all Americans, lowering costs, taking off some of that burden, if it weren't for primarily Republicans blocking progress on the issue. Republicans want to get rid of altogether, they've said, the Inflation Reduction Act. And yes, there are problems with Democrats succumbing to the pressure of Big Pharma. Absolutely, obviously. Your party has the worst problem, though. At least many of us are willing to get something done. Republicans so often are not. And if he had delivered that to the Newsmax audience, that would have been pretty interesting, because it's the Newsmax infrastructure that day after day pushes pro-Republican, pro-MAGA propaganda, when the very problems that are being discussed, at least in that segment, are exacerbated by the lack of progress being made because of primarily Republicans. We have much more. Again, Luke Beasley on YouTube if you want to find my show after this quick break.
Are you having trouble sleeping or staying asleep? Sleep is one of the most important foundations of mental and physical health. And our sponsor, Beam's formulation called Dream, is a delicious nighttime hot cocoa drink with melatonin, clinically proven to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. Melatonin can also help correct circadian rhythm disturbances, get your sleep schedule back on track, for example, in jet lag situations. Dream comes in great tasting flavors like mint chocolate chip, chocolate, peanut butter, sea salt caramel. I love the cinnamon cocoa version. No sugar added, sweetened with monk fruit, just 15 calories per serving. Dream Hot Cocoa it's just a nice way to wind down before bed. It's hot and flavorful. It's not overly sweet. It's a soothing way to relax about an hour before going to bed. Go try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder and get 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Pacman and use the code Pacman. The link is in the description.